Welcome back to Whose Views. I'm Henry Pence, joined with Giulia Silverstein, and with us we have Mariel of University Democrats and Charlotte of College Republicans. Mariel is a second year studying economics and foreign affairs, and her policy interests include affordable health care and environmental justice. And Charlotte is a second year studying government, and she's passionate about aviation issues and
All candidates here are UVA students. We all share the same grounds, yet it seems like political tensions make living among classmates with different views uncomfortable.
So let's discuss the current political climate at universities, specifically within the student body. And for our first question, we can start with Charlotte, especially given that a lot of universities tend to be overwhelmingly Democratic. On campuses, students have reported that they do not fully express themselves or their views in fear of being ostracized. And in both of your experiences, has this always been a problem, or is it more of a recent phenomenon?
I believe it's always been a problem. I think recently we've all seen within the past year different examples on different college campuses, especially some with anti-Semitic views and on different issues. But I do believe that traditionally it's not as comfortable for people who are Republican or who are more right-leaning in their political ideology to express their views, just because they feel like they'll be criticized regardless. I mean, academia itself is traditionally liberal, and so I think a lot of that can be fostered from the professors. I don't think that's their intent, but it can sometimes come across that way.
I would have to disagree a little bit. I do think it's more of a recent phenomenon, and I think it's just really important to remember that we didn't share the diversity of culture, race, even gender in college campuses until the 60s. Colleges campuses being a place for everyone is a recent phenomenon. It's really important that we encourage open discussion across all topics and all views without obviously causing harm to anyone.
And Mariel, let's start with you for this next question. How can student leaders contribute to creating a more open-minded environment for political discussions among the broader student body, do you think?
Yeah, I think any student in a leadership role, holds a responsibility to whether even it's just within their club or reaching out to other clubs that might have different perspectives from them. I think the biggest thing that they can just do is listen and be open to feedback. That's really the biggest thing, and I think those discussions and those opportunities to talk with one another will just happen naturally among the student body.
And Charlotte?
I agree. I would say, though, that a lot of times student leaders, I think, can sometimes get boxed in on getting, having more of if you are a conservative group, then they don't necessarily want to bring in more liberal speakers or sometimes on different ideology, because a lot of times on college campuses, they feel like that's all they hear about. I'm not saying that they should or shouldn't do that, but then also, I think even for a Democrat or left-leaning organization may even feel that way in their own views. But I think it also can go towards it. You just have I agree with Mariel. You have to be open to listening, and that everyone is entitled to their own opinions and their own viewpoints, and everyone comes from different backgrounds that shape those viewpoints. And just because somebody shares something of a different opinion doesn't mean that you can't respect their opinion and where they come from as well.
And building off that, so considering the unique environment of college campuses, how do you think that challenges in political discourse, especially this year or in the past few months, have manifested with and among different student politically oriented groups on grounds or off grounds?
I would say this year, I can't think of a specific example. Maybe this fall, surrounding some of the Israel-Palestinian conflict, some of those instances and protests, all for that, But I think there was some marginalization in some ways about like specific issues within that. And I think a lot of times is that if you are seen participating in any of this, then you can be ostracized from others in different ways. But I think there aren't as many outlets here at UVA to give like a civil discourse and or publication that allows for both sides to be equally shared. I mean, one example, the Cavalier Daily, it's a great organization, but unfortunately there is not a frequent amount of conservative viewpoints included in their issues, and which is totally understandable. I mean, you see a lot of media is left leaning, and that's perfectly fine. And I would encourage conservative students to submit things to the Cavalier Daily so that they could be published. But I do think that not enough there is not enough information or sides being shared in all ways that UVA students could access it.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're in a really unique space being in Charlottesville to talk about political discourse and like political movements and just politics itself. Like, just kind of thinking back to when I, as an out-of-state student, was first deciding to come to UVA. The only thing I knew about UVA in Charlottesville was unfortunately the Unite the Right rally that happened here. Unfortunately, many people were hurt, people died. So just kind of coming here as someone who is really interested in politics, and even not even just as like a liberal, but like how is Charlottesville a place to have these discussions when such a horrible event has happened here? But I think being a student here, I think the biggest like political kind of discourse movement that I was involved in was when Bert Ellis was appointed to the Board of Visitors, because I don't think he embodies what our viewpoints as students are, or even the right to have a view as a student. But I think there's ample opportunities on both sides of the aisle to take part in that, and just being like at UVA on a college campus, I never really felt like there's any like pushback to that in my time here.
So Mariel, you mentioned the 2017 Unite the Right rally, so we can start with you on this one. In your recent memory, are there any specific events, speakers? I know we've had Mike Pence and Bernie Sanders speak here in the last year, rallies or other incidents on grounds that you believe had a notable impact on the level of polarization amongst the student body?
I think it's tough to say, really. I think honestly, like the speakers that we've had, like Mike Pence and Bernie Sanders, really haven't been moments of like political polarization. I think those were, I mean, I went to the Bernie Sanders event, but like I think those were really cool opportunities, and I think we're really lucky to be at such an awesome university that we can bring in speakers like that for students to hear from. I know I had friends who weren't Democrats and were lean more conservative go to the Bernie Sanders event just to hear from him because he's a very notable politician. In terms of like events that kind of have more of that polarizing aspect, I do think 2017, the Unite the Right rally was the moment where that UVA was put on a stage that wasn't so pretty, and it really highlighted a lot of the hate and honestly the history of this school as somewhere that has not been welcoming and has done a lot of harm to the Charlottesville community itself. And I hope that, like, I mean, I wasn't at UVA then, but I hope from there we can come to a space where we recognize where we are, we recognize the history from here. One of the things that I really love that clubs have started doing is doing a land recognition statement, recognizing that we are on Monacan land that has been taken. and just really kind of putting because we are taking up space here in a community that is ours, part of as students and as people who pay tuition to go here, but it's not originally our space. So just recognizing that we take up space here, and we are not the original stewards of this community, I think is really important whenever we host an event or put something on as UVA. So I think from obviously all the horrible things that happened that day in August to now, I think we can grow from that and start recognizing where we are and what it means to be here.
It's a tough statement to follow, but I would say I was not here when Mike Pence came. I was still in high school, and
I was going to say, I was like, I don't think we were here then.
And so I went to Mike Pompeo this fall, but I didn't really see or really hear of that much polarization around Secretary Pence. I mean, not Pence. Sorry, Pompeo being at UVA. I think anybody from the Trump administration comes with baggage with college students, and for just a lot of the 18 to 30 and honestly like even sometimes 50-year-olds like age range, just because it's a polarizing topic in general. But I would say around Secretary Pompeo's speech and his visit, everything was very calm. I would say it was very welcoming. I was there. I worked at the reception that the Jefferson Council hosted, and everybody was very respectful. I mean, yes, there was heightened security and things of that nature, but I'm sure there were when Senator Sanders was here and with Vice President Pence. But one that I have noticed that was very polarizing was this fall, and I'm probably butchering her name. It's Abigail. Do you know what I'm talking about? It starts with an S.
Abigail
Yes.
Okay.
And because I was working the like teardown of that event to help them clean up and everything, and I was not allowed to, it was in Minor Hall, and I wasn't allowed to enter because they were afraid that I was a protester, like trying to go back inside. But I was just doing my job, and totally right on the security's part, of course. But that is the biggest protest that I have actually seen while on grounds. Now, I didn't witness any of the other protests that occurred this fall, as I was in and out of town, but I think that was probably the most polarizing event that I have personally witnessed being a student here. But I don't think that many people in the larger scheme of the school and the community really knew that that was even going on. So I couldn't actually tell you if that made people who aren't invested in the political organizations at this school really think about politics and think that, oh, my views are being polarized or I'm being ostracized for my views or anything like of that nature.
Now, Charlotte, you just touched upon this, so let's hop to Mariel for this one. But how effective or harmful have protests of invited speakers been toward either achieving a political goal or improving the political climate here at UVA?
I think in regards to protests to specific speakers, that's not personally something I would encourage for any speaker. Honestly, I think any like reputable politician that comes here and that is just coming here to talk about politics and not promoting any other agenda, I think that's honestly really important for us to go to. Like, I would go to an event with Mike Pompeo. I obviously vehemently disagree with Mike Pompeo, but he still was a former Secretary of State.
I'm sure you'd encourage other UDEMs.
Yeah, I think that's something.
If I was here when when did Bernie Sanders come? I don't know.
I think it was last year.
Yeah,
Okay,
last semester.
Then I don't think I was aware that he was even here. And I'm somebody who is politically involved, and I didn't.
It was really hard to get into.
Yeah, and but I would have gone if I could have,
Yeah.
just to hear somebody's reputation.
Yeah, so any speaker that's a politician, I think we should encourage each other to go and hear what they have to say, especially if like we're politics students, like
Right.
they have something to teach us. Um, I'm trying to like rack my brain for another event. There was something last fall that was an author that was promoting anti-transgender views. No, that's something like she was not a politician. She was not a reputable figure, and she was coming here promoting opinions in my view are hurtful and harmful to a community at UVA. And so I think that's a little bit different, where pushback to that event, obviously in a respectful and peaceful manner, is appropriate because she's coming into our community and promoting something that we don't agree with, most students. So I think that's an instance where obviously still in a productive and respectful way that we can push back on that and say those views don't belong at UVA.